The Lotus Sutra Ch.1 Introduction, translated into Chinese in the later Qin dynasty by the Tripitaka master Kumarajiva from Kucha, translated from Chinese into English by Tsugunari Kubo and Akira Yuyama, second revised edition. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Thus have I heard. Once the Buddha was staying in the city of Rajagra on the mountain called Gradrakuta, together with a great assembly of 12,000 monks, all of whom were arhats whose corruption was at an end, who were free from the confusion of desire, who had achieved their own goals, shattered the bonds of existence, and attained complete mental discipline. Their names were Ajna Takaundinya, Mahakasyapa, Uruvilvakyasapa, Gaya Kasyapa, Nadi Kasyapa, Sariputra, Mahamaugalyana, Mahakatyayana, Anriuda, Kafina, Gavampati, Revata, Pilandavasta, Bakula, Mahakaustila, Nanda, Sundaranda, Purnamatriani Putra, Subhuti, Ananda, and Raula. All of them were great arhats known to the assembly. There were, in addition, 2,000 others, both those who had more to learn and those who did not. The nun, Mahaprajapati, was there, together with her 6,000 attendants, and also the nun, Yashodhara, Raula's mother, together with her attendants. There were also 80,000 Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, all of whom were irreversible from highest complete enlightenment, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. They had attained the Dharinis, were established in eloquence, and had turned the irreversible wheel of the Dharma. Each had paid homage to countless hundreds of thousands of Buddhas, planted roots of merit in their presence, and had always been praised by those Buddhas. They had also cultivated compassion within themselves, skillfully caused others to enter the wisdom of a Buddha, obtained great wisdom, and reached the other shore. All of them were famous throughout countless worlds, and had saved innumerable hundreds of thousands of sentient beings. They were Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, Mahastamaprapta, Nityodhyukta, Aniksiptadura, Ratnapani, Vaisayaraja, Pradhanasura, Ratnakandra, Kandraprabha, Purnakandra, Mahavikraman, Anantavikraman, Trailokyavikrama, Bhadrapala, Maitreya, Ratnakara, and Susa Thafaha. There were altogether 80,000 such Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. At that time, Sakra, king of the Devas, was also there, attended by 20,000 Devaputras. Kandra, Samantagada, and Ratnaprabha, and the great Devas of the four quarters were there, together with a retinue of 10,000 Devaputras. The Devaputras, Isvara and Mahasvara, were there, attended by 30,000 Devaputras. Brahma, the lord of the Saha world, as well as the great Brahma Sikhin and the great Brahma Jyotisprabha, were there, together with a retinue of 12,000 Devaputras. The 8 Naga kings, namely Nanda, Upanada, Sagara, Vasukin, Taksaka, Anavatapta, Manasvin, and Utpalaka, were also there, each of them surrounded by several hundreds of thousands of attendants. There were 4 kings of the Kimaras, whose names were Dharma, Sudharma, Mahadharma, and Dharmadhara, and each had several hundreds of thousands of attendants. The 4 kings of the Gandharvas were there. They were Manojna, Manojnavara, Madhura, and Madhurasvara, each of them also with several hundreds of thousands of attendants. There too were 4 kings of the Asuras, called Badin, Karaskanda, Bemasitra, and Rahu, each with several hundreds of thousands of attendants. Mahatijas, Mahakaya, Mahapurna, and Maharudraprata, the 4 kings of the Garudas, were there together with several hundreds of thousands of attendants. Finally, King Ajasatru, Vaidehi's son, was also there with several hundreds of thousands of his attendants. Each of them, after having bowed at the Buddha's feet, withdrew and sat to one side. At that time, the Bhagavat was respectfully surrounded by the fourfold assembly, i.e., monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, paid homage, honored, and praised. He then taught the Bodhisattvas the Mahayana Sutra called Immeasurable Meanings, the instruction for the Bodhisattvas, and the treasured lore of the Buddhas. After having taught this sutra, the Buddha sat cross-legged, entering the samadhi called the Abode of Immeasurable Meanings, and remained unmoving in both body and mind. Mandarava and Great Mandarava flowers, Manjusaka and Great Manjusaka flowers then fell like rain from the sky, scattering upon the Buddha and all of his attendants, and the whole Buddha world quaked in 6 ways. At that time, the whole assembly of such humans and non-humans as monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, the Devas, Nagas, Yaksas, Gandharvas, Asuras, Garudas, Kimnaras, Mahoragas, kings and noble empires, having experienced something unprecedented, were filled with joy, and with their palms pressed together, they gazed attentively at the Buddha. Then the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows. It illuminated all the 18,000 worlds in the east, known as far as the lowest hell, Avici, and up as high as the Akanistha heaven. All the sentient beings in those worlds living in the 6 transmigratory states became visible from this world. The Buddhas in those worlds were also seen, and the Dharma they were teaching could be heard. The monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, and those who had practiced and achieved the path were also to be seen, while the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas of various background causes and conditions, endowed in various degrees with the willingness to understand and having various appearances, were also seen practicing the Bodhisattva path. All of the Buddhas who had achieved parinirvana were seen, as well as their relic stupas made of the 7 precious treasures. At that moment, it occurred to Bodhisattva Maitreya, quote, "The Bhagavat has now manifested the sign of great transcendent power. What could be the reason for this marvel? The Buddha, the Bhagavat, has now entered samadhi. Whom should I ask about this wonderful marvel? Who would be able to answer my question?" Then he thought further, quote, "This Manjushri, prince of the Dharma, has closely attended and paid homage to innumerable Buddhas of the past. He must certainly have seen such a marvelous sign before. I should ask him now." At the same time, it occurred to the monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, devas, nagas, yaksas, and others, quote, "Now, whom should we ask about the illumination and marvelous sign of this Buddha?" Then Bodhisattva Maitreya, wanting to clear up his own confusion, and knowing the minds of the fourfold assembly of monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, and of the nagas, yaksas, and other beings in that gathering, asked Manjushri, quote, What is the reason for this marvelous sign, this great ray of light that illuminates the 18,000 worlds in the east and renders visible the adornments of all the Buddha worlds? Thereupon, Bodhisattva Maitreya, wanting to elaborate the meaning of this further, spoke to Manjushri in verse. O Manjushri, why has the leader emitted this great ray of light far and wide from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows, raining down Mandarava and Manjusaka flowers, and gladdening the people with the fragrant winds of sandalwood? For this reason the earth is completely adorned, and this world quakes in 6 ways, and the fourfold assembly is completely enraptured, delighted in body and mind at the experience of such an unprecedented marvel. From the depths of the Avicii hell up to the summit of existence, the ray of light from between his eyebrows illuminates the 18,000 worlds, which shimmer like gold, and throughout all these worlds, the births and deaths of the living beings of the 6 transmigratory states of existence, and the good and bad deeds through which they have received good and bad consequences, are all to be seen from here. The Buddhas, the sage lords who teach the subtle and supreme sutra, are also seen. Uttering soft sounds with their pure voices, they teach innumerable myriads of kotis of bodhisattvas. With their voices, deep and enticing, like the sounds of Brahma, they make the people eager to hear them. In each world they teach the true Dharma. They illuminate the Buddha Dharma and enlighten sentient beings by means of various explanations and innumerable illustrations. To those who are suffering and are cast down by old age, illness, and death, they teach nirvana to extinguish their sufferings. To those who have merit, have paid homage to the Buddhas, and seek the excellent Dharma, they teach the ideal of the Pratyeka Buddha. To those heirs of the Buddhas who have practiced in various ways and are seeking the utmost wisdom, they teach the pure path. O Manjushri, abiding here, I see and hear thousands of kotis of things in this way. There are many such things. I shall now explain them in brief. In these worlds I see bodhisattvas, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River, seeking the path of the Buddhas according to their various situations. Some undertake the practice of giving gifts, joyfully giving gold, silver, coral, pearls, jewels, conch shells, agates, diamonds, servants, carts, and ornamented litters. They give these things joyfully, transferring the merit to the path of the Buddhas, wishing to obtain this vehicle, which is the highest in the 3 worlds and praised by all the Buddhas. Other bodhisattvas give gifts such as ornamented carts yoked with 4 horses and furnished with railings, canopies, and decorative eaves. Moreover, I see bodhisattvas who, seeking for the highest path, give gifts such as their bodies, flesh, hands, and feet, as well as their wives and children. Moreover, I see bodhisattvas who are joyfully giving their heads, eyes, and bodies while searching for the wisdom of the Buddhas. O Manjushri, I see kings making pilgrimages to the Buddhas, asking about the highest path, abandoning their prosperous lands, palaces, subjects, and harems, shaving their heads and beards, and wearing the robes of the Dharma. I see some bodhisattvas becoming monks, dwelling apart in tranquility, reciting the sutras with contentment. I also see bodhisattvas persistent and courageous, going into remote mountains and contemplating the Buddha path. I see some abandoning worldly desires, dwelling always in lonely places, practicing profound meditations, and obtaining the 5 transcendent powers. I see bodhisattvas meditating with palms pressed together, praising the kings of the Dharma with thousands of myriads of verses. I also see bodhisattvas, profound in wisdom and firm in resolution, asking the Buddha's questions, listening carefully, and retaining everything. Furthermore, I see heirs of the Buddhas, endowed with concentration and wisdom, teaching the Dharma by innumerable illustrations for the benefit of living beings, leading and inspiring the bodhisattvas by joyously teaching the Dharma, destroying Mara and his minions, and beating the drums of the Dharma. I also see bodhisattvas who are tranquil and silent in ease, and never exult, even in the homage paid by devas and nagas. I see bodhisattvas dwelling in forests, radiating light, alleviating the suffering of beings in the hells, and causing them to enter the Buddha path. I also see heirs of the Buddha who have never fallen asleep, and are constantly wandering in forests in search of the Buddha path. I see some who are pure like jewels, endowed with integrity and faultless in behavior, in search of the Buddha path. Furthermore, I see heirs of the Buddha in search of the Buddha path who have the power of perseverance and patiently endure those of excessive pride who abuse them verbally and physically. I see bodhisattvas who have been searching for the Buddha path for thousands of myriads of kotis of years, and who have renounced idlers and foolish companions and approached the wise. Having single-mindedly rid themselves of inner confusion, they are meditating in mountain forests. I also see bodhisattvas seeking for the highest path who are giving food and drink and 100 kinds of medicine to the Buddha and the Sangha. They give superb garments and clothing worth thousands of myriads and priceless robes to the Buddha and the Sangha. They give thousands of myriads of kotis of treasured monasteries made of sandalwood and various kinds of excellent bedding to the Buddha and the Sangha. They give clean garden groves full of flowers and fruits, fountains and bathing pools to the Buddha and the Sangha. Thus they give such various excellent things with joy and vigor, seeking the supreme path. There are also bodhisattvas who are teaching innumerable sentient beings the Dharma of tranquility in various ways. Furthermore, I see bodhisattvas who have perceived the essential character of all dharmas or phenomena to be without duality, just like empty space. I also see heirs of the Buddha who are seeking the highest path through this subtle wisdom, their minds free of attachment. O Manjusri, there are bodhisattvas who pay homage to the relics of the Buddhas after their parinirvanas. I also see heirs of the Buddhas who have built stupas as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, with which to decorate the Buddha worlds. These jeweled stupas are magnificent, 5,000 yojanas in height and 2,000 yojanas in both length and width. On each of these stupas are 1,000 banners, flags, and canopies, and jeweled bells ringing harmoniously. And devas, nagas, humans and non-humans constantly give offerings of perfume, flowers, and music to them. O Manjusri, the heirs of the Buddhas have decorated the stupas in order to pay homage to the relics. These worlds have been spontaneously made as extraordinarily beautiful as the king of the heavenly trees when his flowers bloom. Because the Buddha has emitted this ray of light, I and those with me in the assembly can see these worlds of marvelous and varied beauty. The wisdom and transcendent powers of all the Buddhas are extraordinary. By emitting a single ray of light, he has illuminated innumerable lands. Seeing this, we attain that which we have not met with before. O Manjusri, heir of the Buddhas, we entreat you to rid us of our confusion. The fourfold assembly is joyfully looking up at you and me. Why did the Bhagavad emit this ray of light? O heir of the Buddhas, now answer. Resolve our confusion and gladden us. Why is he emitting this ray of light? Will the Buddha teach us the true Dharma that he obtained while he sat on the terrace of enlightenment? Will he predict enlightenment to us? It is not for a trifling reason that all the Buddha lands ornamented with various jewels and all the Buddhas have been made visible. O Manjusri, you should know that the fourfold assembly, Nagas and Devas, look forward to hearing what you shall reveal." Close quote. Thereupon, Manjusri spoke to Bodhisattva Mahasattva Maitreya and the other worthy beings, quote, "O sons of a virtuous family, I am very sure that the Buddha, the Bhagavat, will now teach the great Dharma. Rain down the great Dharma. Blow the conch of the great Dharma. Beat the drum of the great Dharma and reveal the meaning of the great Dharma. O sons of a virtuous family, I have seen Buddhas in the past who have shown this marvel and have taught the great Dharma immediately after emitting a ray of light. Therefore, you should know that in the very same way, the Buddha has now emitted this light and has shown this marvel in order to cause all sentient beings to hear and understand the Dharma, which in all the worlds is difficult to understand. O sons of a virtuous family, in the past, more than innumerable, unthinkable, incalculable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha called Khandra Surya Pradipa, a Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha Bhagavat. He taught the true Dharma that was good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. It was profound in meaning, elegant in speech, and endowed with the character of the pure path of discipline and integrity. To those seeking for the Sravaka vehicle, he taught the Dharma with respect to the Four Noble Truths, causing them to overcome birth, old age, sickness, and death, and to attain nirvana. He taught the Dharma with respect to dependent origination to the Pratyeka Buddhas, and to the Bodhisattvas he taught the Dharma with respect to the 6 perfections or paramitas, causing them to attain the highest complete enlightenment and perfect all-knowledge. Then there was another Buddha named Khandra Surya Pradipa, and after him another Buddha also named Khandra Surya Pradipa. And so in this way, 20,000 Buddhas all have the same name, Khandra Surya Pradipa. They also have the same family name, Bahara Devhaja. O Maitreya, you should know that these Buddhas, beginning from the first up to the last, all have the same name, Khandra Surya Pradipa, endowed with the 10 epithets. The Dharma that they taught was good in the beginning, the middle, and the end. The last Buddha fathered 8 princes before he renounced household life. The first was called Mati, the second Sumati, the third Anatamati, the fourth Ratimati, the fifth was called Vishasamati, the sixth Vimati Samughatin, the seventh Gohoshamati, and the 8th was called Dharmamati. These 8 princes were endowed with dignity and power, and each of them ruled over 4 great continents. Having heard that their father had renounced household life and obtained highest complete enlightenment, all of them abandoned their kingdoms and also renounced household life. Each caused the spirit of the Mahayana to arise within him, practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity, and became an expounder of the Dharma. They all planted roots of good merit under many thousands of myriads of Buddhas. At that time, the Buddha Khandra Surya Pradipa taught the Mahayana Sutra called Immeasurable Meanings, the instruction for the Bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. Having taught this sutra, he sat down cross-legged, undisturbed in body and mind, among the great assembly, and entered the samadhi called the Abode of Immeasurable Meanings. Then Mandarava and great Mandarava flowers, Manjusaka and great Manjusaka flowers fell like rain from the sky, scattering over the Buddha and all of his attendants, and the whole Buddha world quaked in 6 ways. At that time, all in the assembly of humans and non-humans, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, devas, nagas, yaksas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimanaras, maharagas, kings, and noble emperors, having experienced such an unprecedented marvel, were filled with joy, and pressing their palms together, they gazed attentively at the Buddha. Then the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows, which completely illuminated all the 18,000 worlds in the East, in the same way that all of these Buddha worlds are visible now. O Maitreya, you should know that at that time there were 20 kotis of bodhisattvas in the assembly who wanted to hear the Dharma. All of these bodhisattvas, having seen all the Buddha worlds completely illuminated by this ray of light, were struck with wonder and wanted to know why it was emitted. A bodhisattva named Varaprabha was there with his 800 disciples. At that time, the Buddha Khandra Surya Pradipa, having emerged from samadhi, remained sitting for 60 intermediate kalpas and revealed to Bodhisattva Varaprabha the Mahayana Sutra called Saddharma Pundarika, the White Lotus of the Marvelous Law, hereafter Lotus Sutra, which was the instruction for bodhisattvas and the treasured lore of the Buddhas. The assembly also sat there undisturbed in body and mind, listening to the Buddha's exposition for 60 intermediate kalpas, as if only a single mealtime had passed. During that time, not a single person among them experienced fatigue of body or mind. Having taught this sutra for 60 intermediate kalpas, the Buddha Khandra Surya Pradipa made this proclamation to the assembly of Brahmas, Maras, Shramanas, Brahmins, Devas, humans, and Asuras, saying, quote, "On this day, during the middle watch of the night, the Tathagata will enter nirvana without residue." Close quote. Then the Buddha Khandra Surya Pradipa gave this prediction to a bodhisattva called Srigarbha. Addressing the monks, he said, quote, "This bodhisattva, Srigarbha, will become the next Buddha after me. He will be called Vaimalanganitra, a Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened." Close quote. The Buddha, after having made this prediction, entered nirvana without residue during the middle of the night. After the Buddha passed into extinction, the Bodhisattva Varaprabha, having preserved the Lotus Sutra, taught it to humans for the full period of 80 intermediate kalpas. This Bodhisattva Varaprabha was made the teacher for the Buddha Khandra Surya Pradipa's 8 princes. Varaprabha led and inspired them and caused them to be firm in highest complete enlightenment. After paying homage to innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas, all these princes attained the path of the Buddhas. The last of these to become enlightened was named Dipamkara. Among the 800 disciples of Bodhisattva Varaprabha, there was a man named Yashasakama, who was attached to profit. Even though he had repeatedly recited the sutras, he never became versed in them and forgot the greater part. That is why he was called Yashasakama, fame seeker. But because he had also planted various roots of good merit, he was able to meet innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas, whom he rendered homage to, honored, revered, and praised. O Maitreya, you should know that Bodhisattva Varaprabha at that time was none other than myself, and Bodhisattva Yashasakama was none other than you. The marvel we see here is exactly the same as the previous one. Therefore, I am certain that today the Tathagata will teach the Mahayana Sutra called the Lotus Sutra, the instruction for bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. Thereupon, Manjushri, wanting to explain the meaning of this further, spoke to the great assembly in verse, quote, I remember that in the past, innumerable incalculable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha, the best of humans, called Chandrasurya Pradipa. This Bhagavat taught the Dharma, leading and inspiring innumerable sentient beings and incalculable numbers of bodhisattvas to attain the wisdom of the Buddhas. Before renouncing household life, the Buddha fathered 8 princes. Having seen the great sage renounce household life, they also followed him and practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity. At that time, the Buddha taught and extensively illuminated the Mahayana Sutra called Immeasurable Meanings to the Great Assembly. After having taught this sutra, the Buddha sat down cross-legged on the seat of Dharma and entered the samadhi called the Abode of Immeasurable Meanings. The heavenly mandarava flowers fell down like rain. The heavenly drums resounded spontaneously. All the devas, nagas, and yaksas paid homage to the best of humans. All of the Buddha world suddenly quaked greatly, and the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft between his eyebrows and manifested various marvels. This ray of light illuminated 18,000 Buddha worlds in the east and revealed the conditions resulting from the karma of each sentient being. Through this light of the Buddha, all the Buddha worlds appeared, as if they were decorated with various jewels, such as lapis lazuli or crystal. All the devas, humans, nagas, yaksas, gandharvas, and kimnaras were each seen paying homage to the Buddhas. All the Tathagatas who had spontaneously attained the path of the Buddhas looked majestic and very beautiful, with bodies like golden mountains. Each Bhagavat appeared like a golden image in the midst of lapis lazuli, expounding the meaning of the profound Dharma to the great assembly. There were innumerable Shravakas in each of the Buddha worlds, and they saw all the great assemblies because of the light of the Buddha. There were also monks living in mountain forests who, through persistence, possessed purity of conduct, which they protected like a precious jewel. There were bodhisattvas as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, practicing by giving, perseverance, and so on, i.e. the 6 perfections, who also became visible through the light of the Buddha. There were bodhisattvas who, having entered deep samadhi, were tranquil and undisturbed in body and mind, and who were seen seeking for the highest path. There were also bodhisattvas who, knowing the tranquil character of the Dharma, were seen teaching the Dharma and seeking the path of the Buddhas in each of the Buddha worlds. At that time, the fourfold assembly, having seen the Buddha Chandrasurya Pradipa manifest these great transcendent powers, became delighted and asked each other what the reason for this could be. The Noble One, revered by devas and humans, then emerged from samadhi and praised Bodhisattva Varaprabha, saying, quote, "You are the eye of the world. You are believed in by all, and possess the treasure house of the Dharma. You are the only one who can understand the Dharma that I have taught." Close quote. the Bhagavat praised Varaprabha, delighting him, and taught the Lotus Sutra for the full period of 60 intermediate kalpas without rising from his seat. This expounder of the Dharma, Varaprabha, firmly and completely preserved this most excellent Dharma that was taught by the Buddha. After having taught this Lotus Sutra, and having then gladdened the assembly, on that very day, the Buddha told the assembly of devas and humans, quote, "I have already taught you the meaning of the essential character of all dharmas. Today, I will enter nirvana in the middle of the night. Exert yourselves attentively and rid yourselves of negligence. The Buddhas are extremely hard to meet and can be encountered only once in kotis of kalpas." All the sons of the Bhagavat, on hearing that the Buddha was to enter nirvana, became sad, thinking, quote, "Why will the Buddha enter nirvana so soon?" The noble Lord, the king of the Dharma, consoled the innumerable beings, saying, quote, "Do not fear after I enter nirvana. This bodhisattva, Sri Garbha, has fully realized the true character of freedom from corruption. And after me, he will become a Buddha named Vaimalanganentra, and he will bring innumerable sentient beings to the path." And that night, the Buddha entered nirvana, like a fire that goes out when the wood is exhausted. His relics were distributed, and innumerable stupas were built. There were monks and nuns, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, who increased their efforts and sought for the highest path. This expounder of the Dharma, Varaprabha, possessed of the treasure house of the Buddha, extensively proclaimed the Lotus Sutra for 80 intermediate kalpas. All of the 8 princes, led and inspired by Varaprabha, became firmly established in the highest path and met innumerable Buddhas. After paying homage to the Buddhas and following them in their practice of the great path, they all in turn received their predictions, becoming Buddhas in succession. The last, the highest of devas, was called Dipamkara, and as the leader of all the sages, had brought innumerable sentient beings to the path. This expounder of the Dharma, Varaprabha, had one disciple who was lazy and attached to fame and fortune. This disciple ceaselessly sought these things and amused himself from house to house. He abandoned recitation of the sutras and, forgetting them, never became versed in them. For this very reason, he was named Yashaskama. But since he had also performed many good deeds, he was able to meet innumerable Buddhas. He paid homage to all these Buddhas, and having practiced the great path after them, acquired all the 6 perfections, and now meets the lion of the Sakyas. He shall subsequently become a Buddha called Maitreya, who will extensively bring innumerable sentient beings to the path. After the parinirvana of that Buddha, Chandrasurya Pradipa, the lazy one was none other than you, and the expounder of the Dharma, Varaprabha, was no one but myself. When I saw the Buddha Dipamkara, he also revealed this marvel of light. That is why I know that this Buddha will now teach the Lotus Sutra. This sign is just like the previous marvel. It is the skillful means of all the Buddhas. The Buddha has now emitted this ray of light in order to reveal the essential character of dharmas. Now it should be clear to everyone. Wait attentively, with palms pressed together. Having reigned the Dharma, the Buddha will satisfy those seeking the path. If there is anyone seeking the 3 vehicles who still has any doubts, the Buddha will completely remove them, extinguishing them with none left over.